I found a voice in abstract expressionism. So there you have it. This is an example of some of my work. These pieces were inspired by a trip through Denver one day. I was driving through South Denver down on it was either Quebec or Yosemite or something down near I-25 in South Denver. And I drive by and I see this sculpture. It's a huge sculpture, about 25 feet, or 20 or 25 feet across. You know, it's a big round sculpture, and it's got 2 layers, and it's also got another feature to it in which it had geometry, triangle pieces all radiating towards the center, and then parts of it were crumbling, which mixes that organic and that geometric kind of form that just intrigues me. You know, it just creates that little bit of tension that gives things, at least in my mind, a lot of interest. So after having seen that, I'm thinking, as a faux painter, I could make that. You know, I could do one of those and hang that on a wall, and so I started in on this little odyssey of trying to recreate with my own spin on this sculpture that inspired me. And so I started looking around at materials, and one day I'm walking through a lumber yard, and I see these big round cutouts of plywood, and I'm thinking, well, there's a start. There's the beginning. I don't know if any of you know how hard it is to cut a circle out of plywood. Get a circle out of plywood, it's, they're usually lopsided. So I found these cutouts. I got these cutouts, and I started building on that, and adding elements and little things of interest, and texture, and highlighting and low lighting the texture and stuff like that. And then the paper came along. All the surfaces that you see, the prominent surfaces, are all made from handmade paper. They're formed over the piece and allowed to dry, and then I don't know what the right word would be. I think acrylified or something like that. I use a very thin acrylic medium to put to soak into the paper so that it gets hard, and it's no longer a fragile piece of paper. And so I create that in kind of an organic form, and then the whole idea for the lights was, when the popularity of the LED lighting came out, where there's no heat generated by the lights, it allows us to bury lighting in small spaces without creating fire danger and stuff. So the LED lighting and stuff was just a natural next step in all of this. And so it was about a year or so before I created the first one, because I was working out first out there's working with the circles. I didn't do real well in high school, and geometry was not my forte, and so trying to figure out how to cut a circle into 5 equal pieces was kind of difficult until I finally looked it up online and went, oh, 72 degrees. Okay. So that was I figured some of that stuff out, and then and from there the construction of everything, it's like problem solving all the way. So well, how do I raise it off the other surface, and how do I do this and that, and with a shop full of tools and stuff, eventually you can kind of solve some of these problems. And so that's kind of what it has done. It has kind of evolved as a story. The art for me sometimes starts out as a problem-solving technique. It's like, well, how do I do this, or how do I render this, or how am I going to get from here to there with this? And once I get past that, I start thinking a little bit more about it. Sometimes when I do a commissioned piece for somebody, I spend a lot of time thinking about the individuals and things that they value and stuff like that, and that also kind of drives the piece, or the work that I do. In these particular pieces, I was thinking about how the first working title was "Lots Going On," because there was a lot going on under the surface of the relatively flat space on the surface. So that worked really good for me. And I started to think about how that plays out in life. If you watch the news, you get a little bit of news. You get a little bit of a story, and I'm usually left going, I don't get it. I don't. Why did they make that decision? What drove this? Because there's usually a whole lot more going on than there is that we get to hear about. And then I thought about it again on a more personal level, where people are like that. Most people that I know, we present this facade to the world, myself included, of what we want people to see us as, or how we want people to see us and stuff. And so much is hidden, and so much is buried that I wanted to illuminate some of that. Therefore, the lighting and the heavy interest of texture and character in the lower levels, below the large flat surface, the large flat crumbling surface, which kind of represents the ego, which eventually crumbles anyways. It's bound to die away at some point. So that was it. That was kind of my story about the how I created the art and how it's the inspiration for the stuff. So, you guys have any questions for me or anything like that?
Can you talk about some of the subsurfaces that you incorporated in addition to the paper and the?
Oh, you mean what?
Like screens and
what they are? Sure,
yeah.
Sure. Hate to give away the secrets.
Oh.
Tell us a story.
There's everything in there. There's everything in there that comes out of my studio. Bits of cloth, screened pieces, screened through, or acrylic mediums, screened through textured pieces, like the little round ones and stuff. Some cutout, drill bit, like take a drill a board and you get the hole cut. Some of those are in there. And, just all manner of anything, rags, all kinds of stuff that I've put in there just to create texture and interest in that lower layer.
Joe, do you mean to tell us what is obviously a piece of rusty iron hanging on the wall? This paper?
Yes, paper. Handmade paper. Painted with acrylic mediums. Thanks.
What kind of paint did you use?
Mostly acrylics.
Acrylics?
Yeah, and I use a combination of acrylic paints, a lot of metallic paints, and glazes, glaze is a transparent medium with pigment in it. That's really the best way that I can describe that. So, to create a little bit of highs and lows, give a little fatigue to things.
Joe, you mentioned this emotion that's part of your assemblage, rather spiritual actually in some cases. Do you find that in certain days that's depending on how you feel, you might?
Oh, absolutely. Pieces will sit for 6 months. Sometimes they just, you get to a point where they're going nowhere, and you don't know how to solve a problem, or it's just not whatever, and then it just, it sits on a rack for 6 months or whatever. And then, you get a little time off or whatever, and I started to pull them off and start working it out and solving problems and, coming around again to the piece. And, yeah. Some days it's just not there, some days it is.
So given that kind of development cycle, how do you know when it's finished? When do you say I've done enough and that's it?
Good question. I can take any one of those pieces down and add more to it. I mean, it's just, that's kind of the way it is. What I do is I take them out of the studio and I bring them into the house and I hang them, because they look different when you take them off the easel and put them on hang them in a wall someplace. And if I'm happy with it, if it's, if there's nothing, that's glaring, that's bothering me about it, then yeah, it's done. That's it. You guys?
I don't know how to ask this question. It's my ignorance about abstract art, but I want to find meaning in each one. And I'm just curious, do you see them as, I look at them and that's planetary, that's the spirit, that's
sure.
your heart. I mean,
sure.
Can you tell us what you think they mean?
2 layers. There's 2 layers there. The top layer represents the ego, or the face of what we show to the world, or individuals and stuff. The lower layer is the soul, or the spirit, which in my mind has so much more going on, and there's so much more that goes into our decisions or the way we live our lives than what we show the world. It just comes out as a quick decision or answer, or whatever. There's a lot that goes into it. So that's what I was trying to represent with that. But that's the one really nice thing about abstract art, is that it doesn't have to be that. It can be planetary. It can be whatever it is that whatever it is you want it to be. And that's why at the last show that I had, when I hung the show, I had little pieces, little descriptions about what it was, what each one and what it represented. And it seemed to mean an awful lot more to people, because it's hard to connect with just a big circle with a light behind it. put a little something to it, or have a little bit better understanding, it may mean a little bit more to some others. So.
That information's on your website, isn't it?
Yes.
About each one of these things?
Yes. Yeah, the website's up on bio.
I just didn't know until today what your inspiration for this was. And I think it's really fantastic when people are moving along through life and they see something that inspires them and they turn it into something that gives them joy on a regular basis. So I don't have a question, I'm just saying congratulations for finding this part of your life.
Thanks. And it really is a joy to create some of these things. Frustrating at times, but overall, it really is a joy.
But your grasp of geometry is always getting better.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.